I suffered from trauma for a while, and it still affects me to this day.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing that pops into my head. And when I go to sleep at night, it's the last thing I think of. And I just can't stop myself from. So if I watched you talk about trauma now and all the possible techniques that exist in order to sort of deal with them. But it's just like, it's easy to say, but when I have to do it, when I have to stay there with the feeling, with the memories, it just hurts. It just hurts so much. Like, I can barely, I don't know, I can barely breathe. Like, I feel it in my stomach, I feel it everywhere in my body, and the first thing that I want to do is just get rid of it. Like, get rid of that. Look for the next distraction, look for the next thing to fill this need to think about something. And I would call my mom or call someone, or just engage in something that would be kind of distracting. And I just don't want to live like that anymore. Like, I don't want to spend my life running away from what I am, and I'm kind of desperate.
Yeah.
I'm kind of desperate. I don't know. I don't know.
And have you ever worked with a professional with it, with somebody that specializes in post-traumatic stress disorder?
No, actually, I haven't. Well, I live in France, and here you have to pay for a therapist. It's not covered. So I can see a psychiatrist, but if I want to see a therapist, I have to pay, and right now I don't have the means to do that. And I just feel like spirituality has been an important part of my life, and
Are you
I kind of want
sure? Are you sure that the your psychiatrist can't refer you to to somebody? They won't refer you.
Yeah, well, actually, I see a psychiatrist back home, and because I'm not originally from France, and he gave me a prescription, and then he told me to see a psychiatrist here, and I'm working on that right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, I feel like I'm stuck, and yeah.
Yeah, it's not my expertise, post-traumatic stress disorder. I think if you're remembering it when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night, then it's pretty severe.
Yeah.
And what physically effect does it have on you?
I feel like it's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
And I can feel that fear that I felt initially.
Yeah.
All of what happens, all of what happens again in my head. It's like I relive everything in my head, and I start to analyze it, and I start to think about it, and I start to think about, what if I had done this instead of doing this? What if I had done these things differently? And I start to blame myself, and I start to just like spiral in this I get stuck in this spiral of just it's really painful. And
the problem is that with when you've got, if you, I mean, I can't diagnose you, I can't say that you've got post-traumatic stress disorder, but just it sounds like it. So if we just name it that, and then I'm not sure if it is that or not, but when you have that, if you do techniques like putting your attention into the feeling, then it can re-traumatize you again. So I would be careful of doing that, because if you haven't got someone that you're working with, then you can get stuck there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend that if it's this severe. I wouldn't recommend putting your attention in the feeling. I would
Okay.
recommend more, but I'm not an expert, and I really, if you could go and see someone that is an expert in post-traumatic stress, and the thing is therapists are, it'd be great if you could get a therapist that you could pay for, a really great therapist, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not that all therapists are. It's very individual, like whether you get on with the therapist and whether they're trained in the right areas to help you. And so sometimes getting what the doctor gives you or what you're allocated isn't the best thing. And there's many great therapists out there that can help you with this, and I really reckon it can improve. I would recommend that the more, if it's this bad, the trauma, more what you need to do is reprogramming to move your attention away from it and programming it with more with positivity. But this is like a really detailed thing to do, and I think you really need somebody that guides you through it. If not, if you really can't afford it, then researching it on the internet, of
Yeah.
of you, and the techniques that I'm recommending. There's so many different techniques out there, but the techniques that I would recommend is more when the trauma comes up, you've got a technique and a strategy to not go back into that trauma. So it's not about denying it, like you acknowledge it and you acknowledge what's happening, but you use a technique to recondition your mind, some form of positivity around it,
Yeah.
and pulling yourself out of it. Because if you keep getting sucked into it, then you're creating the chemicals of that trauma again and again and again, which is really intense on the body, and it can disbalance all of your body as well.
Yeah.
I don't really have any names of what to look up, because when I did all of this, like I took a bit from here and a bit from there. Like I went to many different teachers and I looked up and went to many different therapies, and I sort of found my own way from all these different therapies and developed my own unique way to deal with all these things. But I know from my own experience of, I think I never was diagnosed with it, but I think I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. And I think sometimes it still appears, but it's very, very minor, and it
Mm-hmm.
appears particularly when I'm out in the forest and I come across a man in the forest, and I have a particular way in which I deal with it. I won't. It doesn't ever suck me into darkness or elongated thoughts. Now I have a particular body reaction. Sometimes my body can be shocked and start shaking, and I focus on strength and my well-being now, and that's all I do, and it quickly rebalances. So the person passes, and it rebalances. And I also have
Mm.
tools like to help me deal with that as well. And uh, so so with that, when I was younger, with that particular trauma, if I could get stuck in that feeling, and that feeling could come up, something could happen, I could see something, or something could come up, and my body would just go like a tidal wave into that feeling. And I couldn't get my mind off it. And so I developed techniques to feel the feeling, to recognize what was happening, and then move into a positive place. Like not allow myself to get dragged under with it, because after a few, like 10, 15 minutes of it, it was like I got dragged into it, like really heavily. But that's my
Yeah.
own experience, and I can't say it's the same for you. But I did this through lots of different, like different therapies and different techniques over the years. And now I think that it's like I've got to a place where I'm really good, and I really have lots of positive thoughts. Like I go for walks often in the forest alone. Like I live in the middle of France, and it's forest all the way around. So like it doesn't stop me from doing anything. And I have my techniques which help me if I am like in the middle of the forest and come across group. Like one time I came across a group of well, this has happened quite a few times actually, a group of hunters with guns, which is something that could trigger me as well. But
Oh yeah.
like but I feel like I got to a good place with it. Another another thing you could do is just research it as much as you can. If you can't afford therapy, like just keep looking up on the internet, watching videos, different people's experiences, so it can help you devise your strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be amazing if our government, like I think that France is quite good. Do you have healthcare in France?
Yes, yes, I do actually.
You,
The psychiatrist is actually covered, so I can go see a psychiatrist. And I actually um, went to see the doctor from work, from where I work, and he helped me a lot.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
think if you've got extra insurance in France, then you get, I think, like 30 a year or something. No, not 30. You get a certain amount, but I don't know if you've got the extra insurance, not just
no, I just have the basic one.
the basic one. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's another thing you could do is look at taking the extra insurance, which isn't that experience, and I think it gives you a certain amount per year. I'm a French resident too, so I'm learning all these things
Oh.
as well. I know that they give you. I know that they give you, if you take the extra insurance, you get a certain amount of acupuncture sessions a year as well. So I was thinking of
Oh.
taking it just to get that. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna look up
And just
the
really go for it. What I did was I went for it like I used to go for acupressure, acupuncture, massage. Like I just really went for it. I just totally got it in my brain that this wasn't going to take me down, and that I was
mm,
that there was something out there for me, and I just had this drive. Maybe it's my mind, like I get fixated on things, and I just really researched it in every way. And you when you're seeking for an answer for something, you get the imagination that you want one person or one thing to give you a very specific path to get you out of something. And from my experience is that it you build on everything. It's not you want one quick answer or you want one answer, do this and that's the end of it. From my
yeah,
experiences, it's something you build on, like you build more information, more wisdom, more understanding, and it goes on through a period of time. And then after you look back after 5 years, you realize like there's been a huge change in your way of being. Like it's not,
yeah,
and sometimes when you're traumatized, you have this attitude where you feel powerless to it. So you kind of feel like, well, if this doesn't work, I'm going to give up, or there's nothing there for me, and you let it take you down. Whereas it's something you keep building on. Like, and more wisdom comes, and more freedom will come. And it's like that kind of attitude, like where you keep being open to new things and listen to what people say and give everything a try. Like I tried all types of things.
yeah, just be open.
Yeah. And I will get better. Like I feel like in my 20s, my early 20s, you sound like you're in your 20s.
Yeah, I am in my 20s, yeah.
Yeah. So when I felt like if I didn't heal myself, I wasn't going to make this life. Like
Yeah,
I really, like it's now, I'm now towards the end of my 30s, but it really transformed. Like it really, it's a fantastic life. Whereas I couldn't say that in my early 20s. It was quite hellish for me. So
oh yeah,
really, like
definitely.
really hold that in your heart. Like there is this change that can happen, and this
Yeah,
trauma is going to spur you for great things. Other people, they don't have that, and they just do what society or life tells them to do, and they do the regular thing, and then they never explore this subject, and they never explore something bigger. So it's almost like your trauma acts as a catalyst to ask questions and to explore something more.
mm, yeah, just to find out more and to it's it's like it's it's easy like when you talk about it and you say, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. It's easy to talk about, but then
Yeah,
when you really have to do it, it's
yeah,
then you're faced with like
yeah.
and I have used spirituality to sort of liberate myself, quote unquote, from what I feel, and I almost have these glimpses where I feel like I know something,
Yeah.
and then it became sort of a drug, and I started just wanting to read more about these spiritual teachers so they can tell me more, and just so I can get away from whatever
Yeah.
it is that I'm feeling. And I actually asked you about that once. I sent you a message and I was like, I just want to feel peace and happiness, and I use spirituality to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And on the human level, spirituality can bring more peace and happiness. But that's not the goal of spirituality, or it's not the goal of non-duality. And
yeah,
this is all part of the journey. You know, life didn't create life in order to not have a journey. This is all part of the exciting journey that you have ahead of you in your story. Like you learn all these things, and then it becomes a drug, and then you fall down, and then you have to pick yourself up again, and you change, and then you find out other stuff. It really is. When you look back in your 80s, you'll think, "Wow, what a journey this was." Like
yeah,
it really it's so detailed. There is so much happening, and this is part of the apparent process, is that you learn all these things, then you tumble, then you learn, then you realize that you actually have to do the practices, then you do the practices and you learn, and all the time, as long as your heart is open to growing, you will. As long as you're like, there's a part of you that really is open to something bigger, then that will present itself. In a way, it presents itself to everything, but in the human world, it seems that you can either become more and more contracted through life, or more and more expansive and bigger and open.
yeah. And I'm trying to not define myself by what happened to me.
Yeah,
Like, I'm trying to, okay, so I read these things like I am that, and I am, I am beyond words, and I am the universe, and I am undescribable, and I am the nature of who I am cannot be contained in words and in judgments and in interpretations. And I try to actually know it for real and not just read it
yeah,
and know it from an intellectual level. And then I'm met with these traumas, with these memories of
yeah.
these traumas, and I totally forget about all of these things, and I start to define myself as the person who had this event happen to her, or who did this mistake, or who made, it's
It's
hard
Maya.
to not
It's
get
Maya.
stuck.
Yeah. This is Maya. This is your particular challenge. Yeah. It's not, it's it's easy, and it's not this journey, and this is your particular dance.
Yeah,
That this comes up, that there is an opening to something beyond you, and then the mind comes in really strongly with the trauma. And the
yeah,
best thing you can do on the trauma level is working out techniques not to collapse into it. And then eventually, when you've worked out those techniques not to collapse into it, then you begin to say or see that that's not you, that's not you. But at the moment, you're collapsing into it. So you've got to find those techniques that stops you falling into it. And then
okay,
because when the emotion is too strong, then you fall into it. And once that's stopped, then you see, that's not me. This isn't me, and that's not me. That doesn't define
yeah,
me.
yeah,
And then at the
yeah,
same
well,
time, seeing that there is nobody finding out these techniques. It's like one movement of life. It is love. Like, you never have found me on the internet. You never did any of it. It's one life acting. It's action coming from everything that's ever happened.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful, but sometimes it's painful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and calling in and being open to speak about this. It's really
Well,
helpful
thank
for
you
other
for,
people. Like it's really for yourself
thanks.
and for other people as well. Like I'm sure
Yeah,
there's people that have this question but too shy to say it.
yeah, yeah, I sure hope it helped
Yeah,
someone out there.
yeah.
Thank you so much for listening.
With
This was a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Yeah, I send you so much love, and I wish you everything, and it will come. It will.
Yeah, I hope so.
Lots of love, sweetie. Thank you. Bye.